Double Game Week 24 is finally here, and in today's video we're going to be going through the best Liverpool and Everton assets ahead of this Double Game Week. We're also going to be taking a look at Bournemouth players as well, with a decent run on the horizon from Game Week 25. So let's dive into today's video. Now, before we start today's video, of course, if you do enjoy any of the content that you see on the channel, please be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as we are trying to hit 12,500 subscribers by the end of the season, and it is only possible with your amazing support. Also, if you want to go and check out the Lazy FPL newsletter, I will leave a link in the description to that. It's a weekly email that you can get sent to your email pretty much. It's a great read. It's free. Go and check the link out. And yeah, easy as that. Right, let's dive into the 11-5 data as we always do with these videos, taking a look at the next 5 game weeks for clean sheet and of course projected goal numbers. Again, I will leave a link to the amazing 11-5 website as well in the description. First off, let's start by saying that it doesn't include the double game week data for Liverpool and Everton. I will flash up that game individually, so just add those numbers to the projected numbers for this week. Starting off first with Arsenal at the top, obviously, you know, another clean sheet today. Gabriel, Raya, Saliba now back as well. Decent clean sheet percentages. I think definitely if you've got an Arsenal player, worth probably keeping them. And obviously in the next few weeks as well, definitely if you're on maybe a game week 30 wildcard that a lot of people are, definitely worth maybe even looking at 1 or potentially 2 Arsenal players as well. And I do feel that if it, you know, it could be one of those where maybe if you do sell Gabriel to afford Trent Alexander-Arnold, it might not potentially fall in your favour, with, of course, some decent clean sheet percentages coming up for Arsenal over the next few weeks. I still think if I was in that position, I would be tempted to do it, but I am potentially having second thoughts on my original transfer plan, which was going to be Pickford in for Raya, with obviously the very, very high clean sheet percentages that we are seeing here. Liverpool's numbers as well are pretty decent, so any investment into Trent Alexander-Arnold or Canate, I think, are the right 2 players to be going for. Of course, like I said, it doesn't include the other game against Everton on here, but a 41% chance from the 11-5 model for that one. So you are talking decent numbers for match day 24 in terms of clean sheet opportunities. In terms of teams kind of looking elsewhere, obviously Bournemouth have a really, really good run post game week 25. Another clean sheet today. As you can see, some really, really good numbers. Kirkes, Hoyson, Zabania, definitely players I would be potentially maybe having a little bit of a cheeky gander at. Of course, Everton originally with a 42% chance. You factor in that 11% chance with the Liverpoolers game as well. That takes them to a 50% probability. So I do think picking up the likes of a Jordan Pickford and Mikalenko could be very, very worthwhile this week. Newcastle, no clean sheet today. Decent opportunities in 24 and 26, but we're definitely starting to see a little bit of a drop-off. So I do think you need the options to rotate, of course, Lewis Hall and Livramento if you've got him as well. You know, they're probably going to be options that over the next few weeks, maybe we'll start to reconsider with some more trickier games coming up for the Magpies. I couldn't think what their nickname was then. There we go, got there in the end. Nottingham Forest as well, absolutely hammered today. Their clean sheet odds aren't too bad from the 11-5 model. However, as you can see, there are some more difficult fixtures on the horizon, and I definitely think today could be a catalyst and a blueprint for how more teams potentially line up against Nottingham Forest. Let's move on then to the projected goal numbers from 11-5. Again, we're seeing Liverpool with some great numbers across the board. Again, these numbers don't include the double game week. Add that in. Again, you're looking at really, really good numbers for 24. A lot of us are going to have Salah, and I do think if you've got that triple captainship left, this is going to be the ultimate week to play it. Of course, if we're looking at other attackers as well, we've got Gakpo, we've got Darwin, we've got Diaz, and we have got Szoboszlai. They're probably the 4 that I would maybe consider. Probably Darwin, Szoboszlai, probably on the lesser side. It is going to be probably a toss-up between Cody Gakpo and Diaz, but I think the form that Cody Gakpo is in right now probably makes him my favourite option over going for a Luis Diaz. But we'll talk more in depth about the Liverpool assets a little bit later. Chelsea's numbers are pretty good, so obviously if you did sell off Cole Palmer, maybe that one could potentially come to bite you back with some decent decent projected goal numbers over the next few weeks. Spurs have got some as well, but trying to find that Spurs asset that's going to deliver that is going to be extremely difficult. I had some people in my deadline stream saying maybe Richarlison, I think maybe Kulusevski, but I think they're all iffy options that I probably wouldn't really be considering for my own team myself. Newcastle's numbers as well, very similar with the clean sheet data. Probably going to be a period where you do start to look to sell off Anthony Gordon. I think the ideal thing that you could do here is sell Anthony Gordon in 25 and, of course, look to move to Brian and Mbeumo in 25 with decent fixtures coming up and decent projected numbers. You could also move to potentially maybe a Kluivert, a Semenyo, or a Ouattara as well from Bournemouth. As you can see, decent numbers for them, picking up around 25 as well. So, obviously, if you've got Anthony Gordon, probably keep him for this week with decent numbers for 24, but longer term probably going to be starting to look to move to other options as well. Nottingham Forest as well, we're seeing a pretty big decrease in terms of their projected numbers as well, so probably going to be the time to sell up Chris Wood in the next few weeks, starting to look to other options. I think your ideal replacements again could be, you know, coming from Brentford, maybe a Mateta, somebody like that, maybe an Arsenal, or maybe a gamble on a Spurs player. Maybe Nicholas Jackson enters the fray again. I can't believe I'm saying that, but maybe he is one to potentially consider. Or, of course, you could make that switch from Wood this week to potentially somebody like Ilian Ndiaye. Obviously, we're going to talk a little bit more about him in depth. But again, decent-ish numbers with them playing Leicester. The only concern I would have is Everton's overall poor goal-scoring output this season. I know Moyes has come in and they've looked a lot more prolific going forward. However, if you look at the XG charts so far this season, they are still one of the worst attacks in the league. That was the 11FI data. Now let's go and look at some players. Now, taking a look at the first team I want to focus in the double game week is, of course, going to be Liverpool. They're the bigger of the side and probably have the better fixtures on paper. But what I wanted to start off with first is actually taking a look at the Liverpool fixture schedule, because some people won't, of course, if you're outside the UK, be familiar with what Liverpool have to compete with over the next few weeks, because some people will just see the FPL fixtures, think they've got Bournemouth and think they've got Everton midweek. It doesn't quite work like that. They've got PSV midweek, but Liverpool are pretty much secured top spot in the Champions League. They only need one more point, so I am expecting some rotation. So that probably bodes well for the likes of Diaz, Gakpo, Salah, Trent, all these players for me personally that will probably get a break in that one, meaning that they'll go into the Bournemouth game pretty fresh. Obviously, Bournemouth, really, really good form at the moment, looking a very, very strong side, and that's going to be a real difficult test for Liverpool. A lot harder than I think people are probably giving some suggestion to, the way that they like to press, and obviously, you know, the good performances they've put in recently, obviously against Newcastle and Nottingham Forest today. Two sides that have been flying at the moment, absolutely dismantled by Bournemouth. Then they go into a game against Tottenham where they need to go and win, right? They need to go and win that game if they want to reach the cup final, but there'll probably still be a little bit of rotation in that one, but not overly kind of big changes. The big changes will probably come in the game against Plymouth, where, you know, I imagine Liverpool will probably make wholesale changes against one of the worst sides in the Championship and one of the worst sides in the EFL at the moment. So I think the way that the structure is probably going to work is the players that play today, some will see breaks against PSV, some. Then you imagine it's probably going to be full strength, probably what they lined up today against Bournemouth. Then we're probably going to see a few of those players still be featuring in the Tottenham game. And then, like I said, it probably would be full rotation against Plymouth. So do just bear that in mind. Of course, I think some people aren't aware that the double game week is actually spaced out over quite a few days. Some people probably thought it was just a Saturday, Wednesday job. There's actually 2 fixtures in between. So maybe just bear that one in mind if you are thinking about potentially picking some more of the rotation risk players, the Diaz, the Gakpos. Maybe just kind of get that in your head that, you know, one of them potentially could miss out if they play decent minutes in the Tottenham game. Maybe then go on to play the Plymouth game as well. So I think, you know, just bear that one in mind when you are looking at Liverpool assets. Let's take a look then at the Liverpool players to go and potentially pick in this week. Of course, I've selected 3 defenders and 3 attackers. It seems like every week I cover these, the Liverpool midfield slot is changing every single week. We've had Darwin in there, we've had Sabitzer in there this week, and the week before we had Diego Jota. It's going to be Sabitzer. I thought he was super impressive today, so let's start off with him. The areas that he was getting into were really, really good. Now, I don't know whether or not that was just because Ipswich were a little bit susceptible and looking to kind of balance out Trent and Salah and looking for that kind of double up, or whether or not it was the back 5 that just couldn't really deal with what Dominic Sabitzer was doing, just finding pockets and areas between the lines that gave him so much space and allowed him to, of course, go and get his goal and assist today. Could have very easily had 2 goals as well if the keeper didn't pull off a smart save, and I was actually surprised at his underlying data per 90. 0.54 is not too dissimilar to what Cody Gakpo's putting in, and actually better than what Luis Diaz is putting in per 90. So maybe he could be one of those picks that's massively going under the radar. So maybe if you've not got the budget to stretch to a Diaz or a Gakpo, he could be one that could be a really interesting option to potentially go and look for. Now, I do think there are probably other players higher up in that list. However, if you are maybe looking for that third Liverpool slot, you've not really got too much money. Dominic Szoboszlai could be a very, very worthwhile calculated gamble with some decent underlying data. For me personally, I probably prefer trying to spend the money getting other options in rather than going for Dominic Szoboszlai, but I think he could be a potential differential option that could do exceptionally well over the next few weeks. Let's move on then to the other attackers, Diaz and Gakpo. If I had to pick one right now, of course I'm going to pick Cody Gakpo. That's the option that I went with. I just don't think Diaz works in that number 9 role. He kind of drifts out of games for large parts of it. Isn't an out-and-out number 9, and you can kind of tell that. Gakpo on that left-hand side has been revitalised. We saw how strong he was in the Euros in that role under Ruud van Nistelrooy at PSV as well. That's kind of where he made his breakthrough on that left-hand side, and it seems like Slot is getting the best out of him again. Really, really good performance from him today as well. He's got the best per 90 data there, as you can see, out of Diaz. Gakpo obviously doesn't beat Diego Jota, but Diego Jota's played a lot less minutes and, of course, is injured for this week as well. But he is one of Liverpool's best attackers, and I do feel when they are going for these Premier League games, he is going to be the second name on the team sheet, of course, behind Mohamed Salah in that attacking lineup. So if I was to pick between Gakpo and Diaz, I probably, like I said, would prefer going for Cody Gakpo. And as you can see, the Fantasy Football Hub predicted points model as well is also backing that, with him having the second best on this list behind Trent Alexander-Arnold. Trent, like I said, is still my favourite pick. Very, very unfortunate not to have came away with an absolute mega haul today if Liverpool had kept a clean sheet. Second half as well was just drifting into the positions, hit the bar. Honestly, it could have been a Trent feast session. Now he goes into a double. Wolves as well at home in game week 25. As you can see, really, really backed by the Fantasy Football Hub model. You've got Liverpool as well looking decent on the clean sheet model from 11ify. You also then factor in the good underlying data that he puts in per 90. 0.39 is better than quite a few midfielders. As you can see, not too dissimilar to a Diaz or a Szoboszlai as well. And you're getting a defender in one of the best defences for XG conceded so far this season. It just seems to me like it's an absolute no-brainer to go for Trent Alexander-Arnold. I know he's at a more expensive price point, and I know for a lot of people he is going to be a stretch to go and get him in the side, but I think I probably would be looking at maybe even a -4 to go and get in Trent. That's how confident I feel on Trent Alexander-Arnold. I put him above Van Dijk. I put him above Konate as well in terms of my defensive options. As well with that, I'd also say Konate absolutely musters Virgil van Dijk. Now, there might be some susceptible rotation for Konate. However, as we can see here, the predicted points model and the minutes model isn't kind of suggesting that that's going to be a play. I think it might be slightly, but I still would probably say I would prefer Konate over Van Dijk. Just the price alone, you're not really getting too much kind of extra out of Virgil van Dijk. He's not really a threat in terms of his underlying data. Neither is Konate, but he is slightly getting a little bit more. But yeah, like I said, if you've got the money though, I'm going to be doing absolutely everything in my power to go and get Trent Alexander-Arnold. A name that's not on this list, of course, is going to be Alisson. I think if you're in the market for a goalkeeper, he could be a very worthwhile pickup as well. But yeah, he didn't really fit this list. I think he's got better projected points though than Diaz, and Diaz, Konate, Diaz, Konate and Van Dijk. I believe he's just behind Gakpo with 18 predicted points as well. We'll see that in a second. I do have the Liverpool and Everton predicted points, but again, could be a potential decent pickup. Let's move on then. Let's go and take a look at what we got next. Oh, we got the predicted points next. I couldn't remember which way I ordered this around. It is the predicted points for Liverpool up next. As you can see here, Mohamed Salah clear and at the top. Definitely, like I said, going to be a decent opportunity to use that triple captain chip. Then we got Trent and Gakpo in that next slot. Like I said, if you're looking for free Liverpool assets, I do believe these are going to be the best free. And the Fantasy Football Hub predicted point model also agrees with me. Salah, Trent and Gakpo. Very little between Trent and Gakpo. I probably would say, like though, at the moment, I would prefer going for Trent Alexander-Arnold. Alisson, should I say, performs above both Virgil and Konate as well. So he's probably going to be the one to go for there. And then we're seeing kind of this cluster of players here that all could very easily be capable of picking up attacking returns. So bits like Gravenberch, Luis Diaz, McAllister, all of them, you could see maybe getting something out of the games or absolutely nothing. And like I said, probably if I'm desperate for a third Liverpool player, maybe would consider these. But for me, it is going to be the top three that I would be going for every single day of the week. Let's move on then to the other side. Actually, that's the wrong slide. Whoops. Where's the right slide? There's the right slide. It is going to be the Everton players for predicted points. We do have some more Everton players to talk about in a second. This is the Everton predicted points. Lindstrom top of this, which I was very, very surprised at. Not really heard too much about him, not really seen anything in terms of that, so I was very, very shocked by that one. Pickford up there. I think we're going to talk a little bit more about Jordan Pickford in a second, but yeah, he's one of my favourite players to go and pick up ahead of this double game week, of course, if you are in the market for a goalkeeper as well. Ilian and Dye at 5.4 million could be a very, very good option, of course, if Dominic Calvert-Lewin is out injured. He did go off early with a potential hamstring as well. It looks like he is going to be the penalty taker as well, of course, if Dominic Calvert-Lewin is injured. So if you are looking for an Everton striker, maybe you've got that little bit of a cheap striker position to go and fulfill, then I think Ilian Dye could be a fantastic shout. Then we also have Mykolenko in there as well. He's going to be my favourite defender to go and pick up. As you can see, obviously Braithwaite's in there. You're going to have Tarkowski, but both of those at 4.8 million. You're not seeing too much in terms of a discrepancy in their predicted points. Now, we just saw the Everton predicted points there, but I obviously wanted to highlight my two favourite players I'm personally potentially going and looking and bringing in. Jordan Pickford is the other one in terms of rare, but I think Mykolenko is going to be my favourite asset. We saw in the predicted points model there's not too much discrepancy between, of course, him and Braithwaite. They're at 4.8 million. He's at 4.3 million as well, and has picked up some random attacking returns this season. However, over the past 5 game weeks, there isn't too much to talk about in terms of that underlying data, but like I said, just for the price point alone, definitely going to be worth it in my opinion. The Leicester fixture is pretty decent, and the following fixtures as well, he's just a nice rotation option on the bench. You could play him in the Palace fixture if you really needed to in game week 25 as well, and I know a lot of us might potentially have a little bit of budget left to maybe upgrade one of those 4 million or 3.9 million defenders, get a double game week player in. I think Mykolenko could be a fantastic shout for that. Moving on to the other side, it is going to be Ilian and Dye. Like I said, now we know he is going to be the penalty taker, of course, if DCL isn't on the pitch, which is fantastic to know. Could be a great striker option as well. I always thought he's got that little bit more flair than DCL. Obviously, DCL's a little bit of an underlying data magnet. Always seems to be picking up really, really good underlying data, but never really delivering. And now with him potentially picking up a groin injury, it does open the door up for Ilian and Dye as that cheap forward option at 5.4 million. That could be an absolutely stupendous differential pick. Nice and easy, nice and cheap, and you could very easily just bench him for the remainder of the season, with him, of course, being in that price bracket. I feel like people that maybe have João Pedro, maybe a Raul Jimenez as well, Ilian and Dye could be the perfect player to go and bring in this week. 5.4 million, a double game week. They've got Palace in game week 25, and of course, if DCL isn't fit and available, you will have yourself a penalty taker as well. Before we wrap up today's video, of course, I wanted to talk about the 2 Bournemouth lads. Now, I offer my apologies to the guy in my stream who was looking at Otaro Dango, and I said, yeah, I probably wouldn't go for it, mate. Honestly, I apologise. The guy got a hat-trick, absolutely smashed it, and obviously looking a little bit more into it after the game, he definitely could be a decent option to go and pick up post-game week 24 for me. I do feel like Liverpool are probably a little bit too strong, and I wouldn't feel 100% comfortable playing one of my players against Liverpool. However, he is an out-of-position player at 5 million. He is playing as the number 9, with, of course, the long-term injuries to Unal and Evan Nielsen as well. Decent fixtures as well. Following on from that in 25, they go on an absolutely tremendous run, do Bournemouth. We saw it on the 11-5 projected goal numbers right back at the start as well. Some really, really good numbers coming up for them. So he could be a fantastic little bit of a hidden gem that you potentially could go for. Again, 5 million. Maybe you've got like a Hamza Chowdhury, a Harry Winks. You've got that little bit of budget left. You want to get yourself a playing player in that slot. He could be the perfect one. Not the ideal one. I think all transfers this week need to be focused towards the double game week. Like I said, it probably is going to be more orientated towards game week 25. However, an out-of-position player playing as a forward, 4-5 million for one of the best sides in the league right now in terms of form and underlying data. Sign me up, I am there. The other option I like as well is going to be Kluivert. You also have Semenyo as well, who is also fantastic. But I think I would prefer, at that more expensive price, to go for Kluivert as well. Again, with the injuries that Bournemouth have currently sustained, probably means that he's going to be seeing a lot more minutes on the pitch. And you know how I feel about penalty penalty takers as well. I am all for a penalty taker. Sign me up. It is one of the biggest cheat codes in the game. Some points I've scored this season from just people picking up jammy penalties is absolutely unbelievable. And like I said, with the decent fixtures coming up, the run of form that Bournemouth are in, honestly, they could go into the top 4 if they get past this Liverpool game, maybe get a draw out of that one, then build some momentum. Southampton are absolutely abysmal, currently on track to beat Derby's record as one of the worst sides within the Premier League. So again, feels like he could be a really, really decent pickup in my opinion. I'm saying all this though, we fully know what's going to happen in Pro FPL. They're going to get to these more easier fixtures and we are just going to see a complete drop-off in terms of their players. But yeah, definitely Tutu, I think, watch in Game Week 24 and have a very, very keen eye and maybe potentially looking at transferring either one of these in ahead of Game Week 25 with a good run coming up, not only from a defensive standpoint, but also from an attacking standpoint as well. That concludes today's transfer targets video. Let me know what you think of the players included in the video. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.